So far, I've been seeing a correlation between moisture application and infestation. You don't have infestation in the front area, but it looks like you have some scarring. Whenever I see heads that are set like this, which are a stream, applying maybe 80% of the water to maybe 20-30% of the area, which tend to have are areas in this landing area which are overly watered, and areas in between the landing area and the head which are much drier. When you have this, you have an imbalance of moisture, drier areas right next to really wet areas. Irrigation companies tend to try and have these irrigation streams overlap one another, but because it's set to such a stream, it really isn't effective, especially when you have them shooting into the foliage, and rather than having an even application in this area, a lot of it's just hitting the branches and creating a drip zone. So you're getting areas where 2 or 3 heads land and areas where they're missing, which are noticeably different. And so what I'd suggest that you do is probably get on the manufacturer's website and get a little adjustment key. It's easy to do yourself, and just adjust these down with a little turn of a key to more of a mist, so that you're getting a more even application through the zone rather than the irrigation is set to a little bit more of a stream than I like to see. What we like to see is even coverage from the head all the way to the end of its radius. You have it set to quite a bit of a stream. Now you might be getting enough redundancy to make up for it, but it looks as though this area, although not infested right now, has some scarring, and the scarring appears to be in the areas that are either under or overserved, indicating that there's an imbalance of moisture here. Too much water tends to contribute to an overpopulation of worms. Too little water tends to contribute to an overpopulation of larvae, which they also like to feed on. So setting these to a more of a stream or a mist avoids having this stream and gives you more of an even application. If you start to see success around the property, but you don't see it in this area without making these adjustments, you might want to go ahead and be sure to make those adjustments. Same thing with the side yard portion of your lawn. These are really set to a stream, and as you see, they're shooting over these areas that are just not able to sustain grass. You're getting really dry areas with deep cracks right next to really wet areas, and it's even shooting in the tree, creating a drip zone. So this area with this drip zone being really wet there in the shade next to this really dry, this should be a favorite place for a mole. So being able to have, actually I would suggest not bringing your irrigation guy into this. You can if you want, but this is probably a standard for them, and they're likely to charge you just to come out here and tell you that this is the way that they like to do it. My suggestion is to look at the head, contact the manufacturer, and this is Hunter. These are little white keys that you can get online for $5. You can also go down to South County. There's a John Deere shop down there that may just even give you one. And it's just a little adjustment on the top that you turn it to more of a mist, so that rather than all this water being shot way the heck over there, so that it would be an even distribution of water throughout its radius, which is what it's intended. That will play a tremendous difference in your supporting your own mole-free effort rather than in the backyard. Causing it. You can see once again the areas where your irrigation doesn't hit and where it does hit. 2 things are happening. 1, that's becoming really wet. 2, this is becoming extremely dry. And you don't have any redundant patterns in your irrigation heads or improperly set to cover this area. This is the kind of area that we typically see being massively infested, but it's also the kind of area that's just giving you poor grass quality. And you know, moles or no moles, your grass could look a whole lot better than this. And for these purposes, having a healthier root system is also a nice, it also shoots in your window, is a nice deterrent from mole activity in this area. This is a common theme around your property. You'll want to have these heads addressed probably
on the
as
other
soon as
side of the backyard. These really should have been tested while they were set up so that you wouldn't run into the situation. Right next to the gate, you have a head that's just pouring into this bush, creating puddling, and it's just wrong. This should be addressed, but one thing that you'll want to do throughout the year is you'll want to prune back bushes. This one is set to too much of a stream and it's kind of shooting down into the ground, but it's also shooting into the bushes, and that's something that you can manage by trimming that back so that you don't have a huge drip line right there and areas that are being avoided right here because it's just not reaching it. That wet area right next to a really dry area, two areas that commonly generate different kinds of mole food that's a strong attraction to moles, appears to be served by the Zone 10 settings. Only one little drizzle's going on in that corner there. There's one that looks like it's either a leak or something. It looks like this is supposed to be served by this area. It's bone dry. If indeed this area is supposed to be served, you might want to have them. Oh, here's one more that's being blocked. In areas like this, tend to get all the water going to this small area, which is a drip line, and then the other side of that, this is bone dry, which this again would typically see as massive infestation. These are the kind of things that remain as lures throughout your property and make having long-term mole-free success very, very difficult, as the food population in here tends to be more than they can resist. Once again, the irrigation settings in this area as well are obviously not helping you. I think the setting on this is probably pretty apparent, but it's a common theme throughout the property. The reason that we focus on irrigation so much is obviously areas like this that stay so wet and that are even shaded and stay so wet, those tend to stay overly wet for a prolonged period of time, creating a massive worm population. In an infested neighborhood, obviously that turns out to be a major problem for people who are trying to have long-term success in being mole-free. When you have areas that are being overshot by irrigation, there's no other heads that actually have redundant patterns getting all this, and this water is shooting entirely way the heck over there, so all of this is getting very little water. You're having poor grass quality, you're probably having higher water bills, and you're certainly contributing to areas of infestation that are really, really attractive to moles. When we have a client who has an in-ground irrigation with persistent infestation, this is the type of irrigation settings that we see. However, typically not this bad. So certainly address it. My recommendation is to address it on your own with a simple key and just going around making adjustments. If you like, on page 4 of our website, you'll see a YouTube tutorial teaching you how to do it. Your irrigation is finished and set back to run where we found it. Also, to let you know, the listing here is inaccurate. I believe it is cycle 3 or zone 3 or 4 that doesn't work, or that is, there's no 3 or 4, it doesn't go to anywhere. And also these aren't entirely accurate. If this matters to you, you might want to have them rewritten.